I am going to now upload it so you get it yet tonight. I wanted to share with you that in life things happen. And this summer I had a lot of hopes and a lot of dreams. I was very excited. A professional YouTuber would tell you, don't talk about stuff like that. Don't tell you what stuff's gonna happen, because then if it doesn't happen, you lose subscribers, you lose supporters, and you have to explain why things changed. I guess I'm not a professional YouTuber because I make the mistakes of sharing with you everything because you're my friends. With that being said, this summer we did some things to our property. It was a one-time and amazing gift for us. I say it was a gift given by God. And we were able to do things. We were able to make our life a lot easier. I had hopes and dreams, but I realized they were not God's hopes and dreams. They were Teresa's. I thought maybe my life would be a lot easier, and I thought that I wouldn't have maybe the stresses that I was having for many years. But that's not God's calling for me. God's calling isn't for everyone to live a easy life. From the moment I was born, I knew my life was going to be a little bit different than the average person's. From the moment I was born, my mother passed away. And the moment I was born, up into a big part of my life, it was one tragedy after another. This happened to me and that happened to me, and it wasn't my fault. 9 times out of 10, it wasn't my fault. But I'm not a victim. I'm victorious. So my life is not perfect. And this week I dealt with something extremely difficult. It was an eye-opener for me. But instead of getting on a video and telling you all of these things that happened to me, you won't know the difference, because I'm not a victim. I'm victorious. And everything that happens to me in my life, I realize now, is for a reason, and that is to share with all of you joy and encouragement. Just remember, when you look at my videos, my life is not perfect. I struggle with some very serious things in my life. But the difference is, I don't dwell on it. It's just water off my back. I came to the conclusion that God's calling for me is not an easy one. It's one that has stretched me, and it's one that has molded me into who I am today. And I also realize that this world is just not my home, and my home is in heaven. And what I do on this earth is only to help others. So, low income, lower income, learning how to make do with what you got, that's my life. That's how it will always be for me. And God's ways are always the best. And I realize in this world that we live in today, there will be times that it will be hard. But then I can encourage others. They're not alone, but I can even do something better. Not just encourage them that they're not alone, but give them encouragement and give them a sense of peace. Because I have peace that passes all understanding. There has been so much done to me in my life that I've come to the point where it's not why me anymore. I've come to the point where now I realize, why not me? And I realize that I'm not here on this earth for me. I'm here on this earth for others. And that, my friends, has given me a peace that money can't buy, and a peace that is beyond any happiness of the tangible kind, you know, the kind where you buy a new book and you're happy for the day. I'm truly happy, and I'm truly set on a path, and I know my calling. I know my direction is clear, and I'm ready for it. I'm going to read you her whole email, and then I'll read to you my response. and she asked if I could do a video on this. Hi Tessie, what an exceptional video you shared tonight. I'm glad your subscriber asked you to talk about this. I have very often wondered how you deal with financial aspects when the economy took a nosedive. Like you stated in your video, you were not used to living the way that you had to. Tessie, this would have made me mad and bitter. But not you, though you dug your heels in and did what you had to do. Your attitude and determination you have is outstanding. I'm serious, Tessie. You are one admirable woman. Another question I have is, how do you talk to yourself and basically have the psychological talk with yourself and figuring things out? How do you do that? Is it your walk with Jesus? Did your parents encourage you to do this? Anything that you could share with me on this, I would really appreciate. I am a worrier and always find myself trying to fix things for people or worried about how they feel and how can I make them happier. Tessie, I don't know where to begin to know how you would talk on this strength in your videos. I'm not a content creator by any means, so I may be asking for something that can't be done. But if by chance you feel that you could create a video about this, I would love it. Just because I'm asking doesn't mean you have to. I totally understand. I had to really read this email over and over again, and I took a couple of days to think about it. I'm leaving her name out of the email because it is a personal email, but she did ask if I could make a video on it. I never really thought about it before, so my answer will be just off the cuff because this is what I feel that the Lord wants me to share. In my life, I dealt with a lot of PTSD, a lot of hurts, and I've dealt with a lot of sorrow. Now, almost all of us have dealt with a lot of hurts in our life. I am no exception. Every one of us has dealt with things in their lives that were very hurtful and traumatic. Ever since I was a little girl, I faced a lot of trauma. And in through my young married years, the trauma continued to follow me. Everywhere I went, I was a victim. And it got to the point in my life when everything was crashing down. Before I had a YouTube channel, there was a moment in my life where my life changed. In one moment, my thinking changed and my life changed. And that was one night when I almost lost my life. I share with that different times through the years. And I was at the time going through a lot of pride. We were at the time of that moment where my husband wanted to sell everything to get out of debt. And at that moment, I was digging my heels and saying, no, not me. What is it going to look like to the people and family around me if I have all of these things and all of a sudden I don't have them? It's no secret about my life and about the journey that God has put me on, about our business. I shared with that in many videos. How do I continue to feel that way? You know, when you get to the point in your life where you beg the Lord to save your life and that you would do anything in this world, change your perspective, if He allows you to live one more day, you would do it. And that's what I prayed. I came home from the hospital and I had to have a blood transfusion, but at the time I was too weak. They put me on steroids because I had a tumor that had to be removed. And I remember coming home from the hospital extremely weak, but I knew that I would be okay. And I laid in bed and I told my husband, I said, what we have to do, we will do together. All of a sudden, the pride of my life just totally dissipated because I realized when it comes down to what really matters, it was my husband, the Lord, and my family. The question is, did you learn this from your parents? No, not at all. I grew up in a home where wealth was important and looking to the wealthy side of things was very important. Now, my mother was not a spender. My mother was a stay-at-home mom and she was very much into saving. But they did have an elaborate life. They did have luxuries in life. So in other words, when they bought something, it was extremely expensive, but they kept it and they kept good care of it. Growing up as a child, I even had an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Back in the 1970s, that was something that you didn't hear of often. We were considered wealthy growing up because my mother did not spend. My dad loved nice things, and he would have a nice Cadillac car that he would get every 2 years, a new one. And of course, we did extensive traveling. But hardship was something I didn't grow up with as far as monetary value of things. I didn't grow up with being poor. I didn't grow up with not having things. Even though I didn't have everything I always wanted, the things I did have were in really expensive items, and they were kept very well taken care of. My mother did teach me a lot about the old-fashioned ways, about the Mennonite saving ways. One thing about the Mennonites is they take a lot of pride in the things that they have, and they like to have things kept, and they like to have things nice. So I didn't learn hardships when it comes to financial things growing up. All of these things happened to me through being married. I realized long ago being bitter is not going to help. I realized long ago being bitter is not going to help my situation. And I asked the Lord to help me and not become bitter or to put the blame game on things that have happened in my life. I don't blame anyone. These are things that happened. Did the things happen beyond my control? Yes. But I realized that my treasures are not here on this earth. My treasures are in heaven. And when I take my last breath, I want the Lord to say, "Well done, Tessie. You did the best that you could." And if that means to forgive people, and that means to turn the other cheek, then so be it. This world is not my home. A few years ago, I lost both my mom and my dad 7 weeks apart. When I lost my mom, it was something that was expected for many years. Dementia has taken her voice for over 8 years. She could not speak. When my mother died, I laid in bed beside her, and I wished that I could have gone too. For a moment, I was a little 3-year-old child wanting her mother. And I realized right then and there that God had a calling for me. My life wasn't done yet. When I lost both my parents, I became stumbled. I became someone without a way. Because it was such a tragedy to me when I lost my father, because it happened just like that. To this day, I still have a hard time looking at photos of my mom and dad. It's just too hard. All of my YouTube life, I was afraid of what people would think. I was afraid how people would respond. I lived in a constant state of fear. I was in fear that people wouldn't like me because they don't watch a video. That comes from a long line of rejection in my life. I suffered rejection from almost the moment I was born. Well, it was. And I focused years on that rejection. But what I missed out was the acceptance that I had ever since I was born. Because someone took me in who was not my flesh and blood, and they loved me like their very own. But like you, my friend, I was afraid of what people would say or think. I realize now that it doesn't matter what somebody thinks of me. It's what God thinks of me and what my family and my friends think of me. And I know I'm very much loved, and I have a lot to be thankful for. Strength comes from deep within with my love of the Lord. He is my Savior. If it wasn't for the Lord, I would never have made it this long. There was a time in my life, many years ago, that I didn't want to live. Anxiety and panic attacks took over my life, that I would just wish I could go home. But God saw me through it, and God showed me the reasoning for some of the things that I have gone through. And I understand now fully what my calling is. And I understand fully that we are all made in God's image, and we are beautiful human beings who deserve happiness, kindness, and peace and love. And in my videos, I want to reflect that. In my videos, I want to reflect the beautiful old-fashioned way of living, even if it's just for one person who needs that comfort that day. The biggest thing that people have told me through the years consistently is that when they watch my videos, They feel their anxiety leaving them, and they feel peace. That is what God showed me I need to be and do. Keep my eyes looking forward and not looking back. Not looking at the what ifs, I did this, or what ifs, I did that. But keep looking forward and just know that I'm on the right path, because I have all of you who have been there through very dark days in my life and been there through very good days. And we are together a family. Don't get me wrong, I am a warrior, but not as much as I used to be. It is my walk with the Lord, because I talk to him like he's right beside me. I talk to him like he's a person right beside me. Even when I wanted to answer this email and video, I said, "Dear Jesus, please help me." Because sometimes it's hard to express yourself in a way that people will understand you. Many times in my videos, I expressed myself a certain way that I was totally misunderstood. Back in the early years when my social skills weren't quite very good, and it was hard for me to share with people that they could understand. I still have a speech slur once in a while, and I try to think first before I speak.